The Chicago Bears have expanded their head coaching search, and now you're looking at quite a few different names popping up out of nowhere. I'm going to break this down for you. If you like this type of content, make sure you hit the like button on the way in. Helps push me up in the algorithm, and I certainly do appreciate it. All right, guys. So the Chicago Bears have now increased to 12 candidates that they've requested an interview on, and those being listed so far are Drew Petzing, offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals. Not sure I like that one, but I understand. We're looking for an offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, and the prohibitive favorite right now, Aaron Glenn, Detroit Lions defensive coordinator. Does it feel like we're attacking Detroit, just trying to weaken their team just a little bit in order to find our head coach? It just kind of feels that way to me. I'm not accusing, by the way. I think it's pretty interesting that that's who we're going after. And by the way, don't forget, we're going after somebody from Minnesota, which I'll get to in just a moment. Then we have Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator out of Miami. Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator out of Denver, out of the Denver Broncos. Mike Vrabel, former Tennessee Titans head coach, who, by the way, has already interviewed for the Jets job a couple of days ago. Thomas Brown, the interim coach for the Chicago Bears, offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator originally, promoted to offensive coordinator, and then to head coach. Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator. Don't like that one at all, by the way. No offense to Lamar Jackson or anybody like that. As a matter of fact, Lamar Jackson looking like the MVP again in the league, and I like that. It's a great thing to see. However, I don't like the way Baltimore calls their games. Look, we might have the talent to be on that same level, but I don't like this one. But you know what? They're one of only two teams that averaged over 30 points per game this season. So maybe, just maybe, I'm wrong about Todd Monken and that he's going to be the next big thing in the market to begin with. Then you have Mike McCarthy, the current Dallas Cowboys head coach. He has an opportunity to do some interviewing. Now, he has been reached out, and there is a moment right now. The Bears have asked the Dallas Cowboys for permission, and they could be moving on in Dallas from Mike McCarthy. And I know a lot of you might be on the fence about Mike McCarthy not wanting, but listen, the one thing that you could say about Mike McCarthy teams when he was in Green Bay is that they were always prepared. Now, it's a different world in Dallas. And I don't think that Jerry Jones has done a very good job at all of building Dallas. So Mike McCarthy's job has been a lot more difficult. And in 5 seasons, he has a record of 49-35, meaning he has a winning record and he is a Super Bowl champion coach. So Mike McCarthy, not a bad choice, despite the fact that I feel like maybe he's a little bit not long in the tooth, if you will, but maybe the game offensively might have passed him by just a little bit. So, but that's a conversation if he gets hired that we might be able to have. Next up is Brian Flores, Miami defensive coordinator. They allowed 93 yards per game on the ground. One of the best run defenses. They also rank 5th in the league in points allowed at 19.5. Something that the Chicago Bears need. And listen, I want an offensive coordinator. I would like to see Caleb Williams get catered to give him every opportunity to excel, but I don't really need that from my head coach. So if Brian Flores were that guy, now I don't like it, by the way, because I don't like that it's not nepotism in this situation, but Ryan Poles and Brian Flores being roommates early on, does that give him an inside lead? I don't know. I would like to have an offensive mind at the head coach position, and then he comes in with a very good offensive coordinator. Or, I don't like sticking with Thomas Brown, by the way. I'm going to make that known. But if he comes in with a nice offensive coordinator, then you know what? Who knows what's going to happen? Then you have Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And look, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, both look very good. And, having having that opportunity might end up being a good thing. I'm not really sure. I'm not convinced, by the way. I'm not convinced. But being in Mike Tomlin's orbit, I think, is a good thing because you learn a lot about coaching and about getting the most out of your players. Then you have Mike Kafka, the New York Giants offensive coordinator. I do think that should be an almost immediate no. But I mean, they've not been very good. I don't think the Giants have been a very good team at all. So I don't know that this is who I would be looking for, but he is on the list. And then David Shaw, Denver Broncos executive. Shaw served as the head coach at Stanford for 12 seasons. And by the way, David Shaw was a very, very good coach at Stanford. And look, I just want to say this. Other than John Elway, I don't remember Stanford being very relevant. And John Elway was a long, long time ago. So I don't remember a lot of relevance in Stanford until David Shaw came along, and then he really started to shock some of these teams like UCLA and USC, and he started to come through with these big wins even against teams that are now rising up like Oregon. I think that the Stanford Cardinal were a prepared team ready to play hard on every single game, and that might be a good thing. Now here's the problem. The problem with that is the way that you motivate college players is a lot different than the way you motivate NFL players. At least it was up until NIL. So, this could be a complicated situation. So, we'll see how it plays out. But for right now, those are your candidates. I still think Ben Johnson is the prohibitive favorite. But let's move on here. The Bears have made 9 roster moves. They've signed the following players to their practice squad. And that's Theo Benedette, Chris Glazer, John Jackson, Carl Jones, Jamry Chroma, Austin Reed, Ricky Stromberg, Samori Toure, and then Joel Wilson. That is your reserves and futures contract. John Jackson, by the way, is John Jackson III from USC. That is the best friend of Caleb Williams. I think Jamry Chroma, I think we liked what we saw out of him in preseason last year. Some of these guys might even get a look. We don't know. There's 3 offensive linemen on the list. And look, the end result here is the Bears are going to have to do a fantastic job of building an offensive line and a defensive line and establishing a lot more depth than what it is that we have right now. Things that prohibit them, in my opinion. Tremaine Edmunds, $23 million contract. I would really like to see less money being spent at that middle linebacker position or a little more value. I don't know that Tremaine Edmunds is that guy. We're moving on, it looks like, for all intent and purposes, from both Tevin Jenkins and Keenan Allen. So the Bears are going to have a lot of payroll. So I think there's a lot of moving, a lot of hustling, and a lot of getting a lot of high-octane players together. We're going to talk about the draft coming up very, very soon, but I want to know what you think in the comment section down below. Out of these candidates, is it offense? Is it defense? What are you looking for? Let me know in the comments down below. And then what players for the Chicago Bears would you like to see here in 2025? Are we looking at Micah Parsons? Are we looking at one of those big-time players? Max Crosby, are we looking at, can we make a move to get something on that defensive line that becomes a difference maker? Because I thought, by the way, DeMarcus Walker would be that guy that he would step up big time, but this team really did not excel on the defense. They were good, but not great. They were never great, but they were still good. Just, I thought maybe we'd get a little bit more out of them. I thought we'd get a little bit more out of Austin Booker, but we have not done a great job at pressure so far this year. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Bear down. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.